Call the meeting to order. Stand and we'll pledge the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order. You want to do roll call?
Yes, Mr. Sebald.
Present.
Ms. King.
Present.
Ms. Gungeon.
Present.
Mr. Dawson.
Present.
Mr. Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. Oops, I'm sorry, Mr.
Need
Johnson.
approval of the minutes? Somebody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. All right. Number 4, I guess we're going to go to old business with the table of Were Rabbit.
Yes, this is old business, tabled from December 12th, 2023. Appeal number 12297 by Allison Love for Were Rabbit LLC, concerning a property located at 250 East 35th Street. Parcel ID is 18-5363-133, located in an R1A single-family residential zoning district. The appellant is requesting approval of a short-term rental, special exception use per section 204.10 of the City of Erie zoning ordinance, per section 508.10 of the ordinance. All special exceptions use shall be heard by the City of Erie zoning hearing board.
So as the board begins to consider this application, if you recall, we did have previous testimony that was offered by the property owner at the time of the initial application. It was tabled because there was some question with regard to the adequacy of the parking based on our interpretation of the zoning ordinance itself and the parking available at the property. That it appeared that because of the configuration of the driveway, there might not be as many actual parking spaces there as was represented. In the event that there was more than one independent group that was going to be renting this facility. There's also been some questions with regard to the screening requirements. We've had conversations with the city solicitor's office and with the Department of Planning folks about what exactly the intent was, and we've made some recommendations with regard to possible changes to the zoning ordinance to clarify that. For the purposes of considering these appeals, the guidance that we've received from the solicitor's office is that we are to look at these as special exceptions, and as special exceptions, there can be some conditions that are placed on these. So with regard to this particular parcel and the availability of parking spots, as one of the questions that was raised and that I'll ask on behalf of the board is, if this property is going to be rented out on any given weekend or during any given week, will it ever be rented out to more than one, trying to think of the right way to phrase this, one coherent group of individuals? In other words, is there going to be a situation where you have rentals in-house for party A and then rentals in-house for party B? Because that may cause an issue with regard to the off-street parking requirements. The way the off-street parking requirements currently read under the zoning ordinance is that if you're going to have, like for a hotel, somebody parking, they have to be able to get in and out of the parking spot without anybody else moving. So if you've got a short-term rental where somebody is parking behind somebody else and they're unrelated, they're not in the same group, that technically could cause a parking issue. So one of the questions that we wanted to ask was, will your rental of this property ever be to more than one distinct, I guess that's a better word than coherent, more than one distinct group of individuals?
No, the short-term rental is supposed to be just for one group at a time. And it wouldn't ever be to, like, you know, one bedroom here, one bedroom there. It should be rented as a unit.
Thank you. I don't believe that there were any questions or any issues with regard to the screening on this property. I believe that the property is fenced, is that correct?
That is correct.
Any other questions?
Technically, there's an issue with that as written, so.
Well,
You wanna
and that's,
jump into that?
and that's a whole separate issue. And since we do have a representative city council here, the requirement under the short-term rental ordinance is a screen planting. So as written, if it's a fence and not a plant, there is an issue with compliance under the ordinance itself. We don't think that that was the intent of the ordinance, but that's the way it's written. So, but the property is fenced. It's not a plant screening, but it is fenced, correct?
It is fenced, and on two sides, there is screen planting also.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
It's more of a general comment, and so it's not to be a nuisance here, but I think what happens is if we deviate from how the ordinance was written, then you open these people up for a neighbor who is litigious to bring that up and litigate against that, because they're not strictly meeting special exceptions requirements, and special exception requirements are by definition specific. So we're not really allowed to, I don't believe, do variances for a special exception requirement. That's my concern. What we had done is tried to talk to council through, I believe, Chuck, and we talked to the planning board, we've talked to zoning and the city solicitors to talk about different ways to amend that. And then it just kind of went away. So that's my only concern. You know, when a reversal happens or something like that happens, it costs us all money, not just the Airbnb folks, not just the city, but all of us as residents too. It's just a thing that seems like it could be easily cleared up through a curative amendment. I haven't been really informed why that couldn't be done by council. Not to put you on the spot, Mr. Witherspoon.
No comment, Mel?
I could comment on behalf.
Well, yeah, that's.
Go ahead,
something.
Jake.
Go ahead.
As mentioned, there were several discussions about amending the current language in the zoning ordinance to specify the type of screening that would be required. The recommendation has been made by the Planning Commission to delete the term screen planting strip and replace it with the term screening, which is defined in the ordinance, and the definition does indicate it can be either a fence, hedge, or wall that would satisfy the term screening. So that amendment has not been formally adopted yet. However, the Planning Commission has recommended that modification be made.
There was another issue too with abutting and adjoining. So, not to get into the weeds, but I'll get it wrong probably, but adjoining would mean all four sides of your property, if they're adjoining residential neighborhoods, would have to be screened. So even the front. I think yours is a school butting up against it in a park, right? So on
Yes.
the south side. But, and then it would have to be the whole area, whereas the recommendation is to change that, which is, I would agree with, to a butt. change it to a but, and then make it the recreational area, meaning the backyard. But none of those have been adopted, so I don't know that we can go off reservation based on planning commission recommendations, because that's not a codified ordinance. It's just a suggestion.
Jake, do we have a time frame as to when council will hear that?
And we did address some of those other issues as well through the conversations that we've had with the board and members. I am hoping that a series of zoning ordinance amendments can be represented. As I said, the Planning Commission has already endorsed the short-term rental language amendments. They've just not been put on council's schedule for adoption. We were working on several other amendments as well, and thought that we would try and have one public hearing to address all of those amendments instead of doing several separate amendments to the zoning ordinance. So I'm anticipating that there is going to be another group of amendments that will go forward to council after the June Planning Commission meeting next week that would include, again, the short-term rental recommendations. So hopefully that will then get on July's schedule for council to hold a public hearing and take action after that.
I see solicitor checks here. Is there a way to give us an opinion right now about a curative amendment and why that would be inappropriate or not right? Because my understanding of the MPC is the curative amendment's pretty easy. Council can just vote on it at their next meeting.
I suppose we should swear you in.
I'm a lawyer.
Okay.
We're always,
Really?
no, we're always under oath.
Yeah. I mean, really, just the simple answer is what Jake had already mentioned, is that there is a series of planning changes to the zoning ordinance. Some are short-term rentals, some are some other issues, to clean up the language and make it easier to interpret. And the goal was to do really one comprehensive ordinance. And the STR recommendations by the Planning Commission would be incorporated into that.
But you're looking at 2 hearings, notice, you're probably 120 days out? At best case, if they put it on the agenda now?
I would think it would be less than 120 days, but the goal is, though, to do one ordinance. We're trying to be more efficient, work smarter, not harder.
No, I get that, but
So,
it's been
and everything
120
that-
days now.
Well, like I said, we're trying to get everything into one ordinance. That was the recommendation. So like I said, there's like 3 or 4 different changes to different parts of the zoning ordinance. Get it done. The changes that you mentioned that have already been discussed over the last several months are essentially approved or accepted by everyone. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying it's not signed, sealed, and delivered, and I got that. But for the most part, they are agreed upon and are sensible changes. So that's all I have. That's my only comment, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So where does that leave us, Arthur?
Well, that leaves you to vote on this particular application.
Well, then let's call for a vote. Now, this is for, how are we voting? What are we voting on? We're voting on to approve this?
You're voting to approve the special exception request.
Okay.
For the vote to approve this special exception, Mr. Sebald.
Could I ask a question before that
Oh,
takes place?
Sure.
As you said, we can add conditions. Could one of those conditions consist of the approval of the amendment?
I don't think so. Because now the conditions that we can impose would be conditions on the property owner, and she doesn't control what city council is going to do. I don't think that would be an appropriate condition or an allowable condition.
But if the condition changes and we have approved it, or it doesn't change, we have approved it, where does that leave us if we don't add something to it?
So what condition, or what particular aspect of it would you be talking about? The front yard screening or the difference between the fence and the planting?
Well, those are two separate.
Two separate, yep.
the front yard screening for sure, and the fencing.
Well, if somebody were to challenge the
That's okay.
decision within the appropriate period of time after approval, then that could be something that ultimately, a court would decide. But if nobody challenged it, then it would be approved, and she'd have the special exception, despite what's in the ordinance.
Thank you.
Roll call, or,
Call for the vote.
yep,
Okay, to approve. I'm going to fix my order. I apologize. Mr. Dawson?
Approve.
Ms. Gungeon?
Denied.
Ms. King?
Approved.
Mr. Siebold?
Also denied.
And Mr. Johnson?
I'll approve.
3-2, you have passed. I will contact you with your next steps to go through licensing and inspection so that you can get that final inspection and license to get going.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming today.
Good luck.
Our
And then
next,
Ms. Kavalovich is not present?
Ms. Kavalovich, can you say that?
Kavalovich.
Kavalovich, thank you. Are you present? I don't believe she has.
Anybody present on her behalf?
I do not have her on.
Okay.
Chair, in light of the fact that we've had technical difficulty today, don't know whether she had a chance or an opportunity to get in. Could we continue the table until our next?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
So we'll continue to table on this issue. Everybody in agreement? Yes. Okay. Did you say she has cancer?
I don't know.
Oh. Oh, I thought somebody said she
No.
was sick.
Okay, are
Yep.
we ready to move on to new business? Okay, very well. Dar, you're available. This is Dar. They'll need to swear you in first, and I will get
Hi.
you. Oh,
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
go ahead.
Could you please raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. And, sorry, can I just ask the board, when you're speaking, I don't know if you have nameplates in front of you, it kind of looks like you could like flip up. When it's wide, it's kind of hard to tell. When it zooms in, I could identify who's speaking better, but just to make sure that I attribute the right comments to the right speakers, I apologize.
They are not their name tags, so you don't want those names on there. Those are our city council name tags, so. And this appeal is in regards to number 13305 by Darlene Galazeski, and I apologize if I just butchered your name. This is concerning a property located at 154 Andrews Park Boulevard. Parcel index ID is 14-1113-204, located in an R1 low-density residential zoning district. The appellant is requesting approval of a short-term rental, special exception use. Per section 50810 of the zoning ordinance, all special exception use requests shall be heard by the City of Erie Zoning Hearing Board.
Okay,
Okay.
questions for Ms. Galashewski?
Are you asking if I have any questions, or did you
Yeah,
just
you want to
ask the-
explain what you want to do there?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to explain to us and the citizens what you're going to do with this property?
Yeah, absolutely. If I have the floor first, I want to say thank you guys for allowing me to join via Zoom. I am located in Chicago, as she said. I just recently relocated here, so I appreciate you guys not having me fly back to the great airport of Erie to be there today. My business model as of right now is to create a comfortable, safe space for nurses and doctors who are traveling to the Erie area for 6-week rotations. I'm filling a housing need that is longer term and more comfortable than a hotel, but shorter and more furnished than a 1-year rental. My bookings plan to be direct, and I'm seeking a short-term permit so that I can use Airbnb as additional advertising and to fill the gaps when nurses are not booked back-to-back for these 6-week rotations. I plan to do minimum stays of 14 days to avoid parties and foul activity on Airbnb when it's booked through Airbnb and it's not booked through direct booking, which is a private channel on Facebook with nurses only that are in there. My personal background is I lived in Erie for 9 years. I bought this house 2 years ago and I lived there myself until I relocated. My family and I remodeled the whole thing and really turned it around, and it's a gorgeous place to live. I live there now. It's a quiet neighborhood. I really respect my neighborhood and my community and all of my neighbors, so it's definitely my goal to set some pretty clear and standard housing rules for my guests that stay there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have about the property.
Similar to the last appellant, you'll be renting to one group at a time? Will you be renting to 2 nurses at a time?
It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath house. Typically, the nurses partner together and they take rotations with friends or people that they know. So I'm not renting individual bedrooms. I am renting to at least 2 or 3 nurses that already know each other, and they'll be living there together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from the board?
Chair, just for clarification, when she said renting to 1 or 2, I thought we said single family, and just want to clarify, is 1 or 2 single family?
Amy, if you would, go
If the
ahead.
question is for me, it is a single-family home, so it's 3 bedrooms, but the nurses will be staying in one whole room themselves, and they're sharing the entire space themselves, so it's similar to just as if a group of 3 people went to a vacation home together, or 3 roommates rented a space, like a whole house themselves.
Definition for family in the zoning ordinance is 3 unrelated. So up
Okay.
to 3 could be allowed in a normal situation regardless.
And you've stated on your application that you have a local registered agent that will be available 24/7, considering
I do,
you're at a
yes,
distance?
on
Okay.
that. Yes, and her address is on there, and then I'm also helping remotely, so I'm available 24/7 as well, and I'm messaging available for any questions, things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So on the compliance checklist and the occupant notice, it's got different numbers for parking.
Okay, yes.
The one has 3 and one has 4. So what are you saying?
That's something that I need to clarify with you all after, so, that neighborhood, a lot of the people that live there do park their cars on the street. I'm not sure why everybody doesn't use their own, driveway. Like, even if they have a spot in their own driveway, some people choose to park on the street. And so I don't know if that is allowed or not, if that's only, right now I have my house rules kind of like sketched out, and I have that you can't park on the street overnight if you had someone come during the day and you already had 3 in the driveway. But as it stands right now, 3 cars can fit very comfortably in the actual driveway. And then in that neighborhood, a ton of people park on the street. So I don't know, that's something I'm willing to just follow your guidelines and abide by. I don't have something set on that.
Okay, so the STR ordinance requires that all guests park off-street. So
Yeah.
it would be the 3. Is that, and you share that driveway technically, or?
The driveway, it is one big driveway, so the left side, you can fit 3 cars on, and the car that you see on the right side is the next neighbor over's and with the garage. So he can fit 1 in his garage and then 2 in front, and I don't have a garage on that side, so 3 can fit on the left side.
Okay, so technically, and I'm that guy, I'm the technically guy, your driveway would allow 1 parking spot.
I know you're the technical guy, so while I visited the property to check the screening and do the checks that we do, I saw the mixed driveway, I saw the split, and I measured it myself. She can get 4 legal cars in that driveway.
Get them out, in and out?
They're straight parked in, one behind each other.
But that's not the definition of a parking space.
10 by 20 is what we've used, or 10 by 18, I'm sorry, is what we've used in the past to determine how big of a spot you would need for a normal vehicle. And that's how I
No,
measure.
I think that the issue that Mr. Seabold is raising is ingress and egress. How do you get in and out if everybody's stacked up?
Right.
So you have 3 unrelated
I was
nurses.
technical, just not
You were
that
technical,
technical
I get
for
where you're
you.
coming from.
But I knew that question would come up because I noticed it as well. so.
Yeah,
And to, the one point of unrelated nurses, they're not unrelated, they do all communicate with each other and are coming into this knowing each other and already having a relationship. So,
sorry, that's not what they mean. With related, it means actual blood relation, I believe.
I think
oh,
so.
as family members?
It's still one family, but it's still, they're unrelated. I'm saying they'd come there with 3 cars, correct? Most likely.
Yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
3 would be appropriate for the family and a single family.
Is the parking ordinance that you're talking about following, is that based on the hotels or is this specific to the short-term housing?
It's actually based on, everything's based on that rubric. A parking space, to count as a parking space, it has to be accessible at all times. So that car has to be able to get out onto the street or the byway without obstruction,
understand.
without obstruction from another parking space.
Okay, I was asking if the ordinance that you're talking about right now, that rule, is that based on this for short-term or is that pulled from the hotel ordinance that you were talking about earlier for parking?
So there are two things, two aspects of parking that we're talking about here. First, with regard to off or on-street parking being prohibited, that is specific to short-term rentals. Okay?
Yes.
With regard to the stacking of vehicles, that is a general parking requirement. It comes into play if you're talking about unrelated people, right, in that regard. And the question I think that's being asked is, what constitutes related? If the definition of family is more than 3, less than 3 unrelated people, if you've got 3, does that still constitute family, and does that create some issue with regard to whether you need to have the individual access parking spots?
Thank you.
I think that's the question.
So how do we address that? Like technically, if we're going to approve a license, it would be for 1 parking spot, and then let it fall where it may in terms of enforcement.
Right. And I mean, again, it becomes, a lot of this falls back on enforcement. It really does, because, okay, I understand, I mean, I have friends who do travel nursing, so I get sometimes they will team up and they'll all find a place to stay, but that doesn't always happen, right? Because somebody might get a job, down in Uniontown, and somebody might get a job in Wilkes-Barre, and somebody else gets a job in Erie. So now you're creating a different group, and just because all 3 are coming in at the same time doesn't mean their contracts are going to last the same amount of time. Doesn't mean that they're going to be people that really know and work with one another on a regular basis. So are those 3 unrelated people now considered a family because they're all in the same dwelling? I don't know.
But it wouldn't matter in terms of parking. Parking's parking, right? Like the 3.
Well, if you have a single-family home and you've got mom, dad, and 3 kids, okay? You've got 5 vehicles potentially in that house, maybe more if somebody collects. You could have a driveway where all 5 vehicles or more, if they fit, are in that driveway, right? Technically, assuming that they don't live on Green Garden, they know that, the street doesn't belong to them, so they don't park on the street. That's not a violation because they're all in the same family, really.
Correct.
But now we're talking about a definition of family that is 3 or fewer. So if there are 3 or fewer, do they constitute a family for purposes of that parking regulation?
I don't see an issue with that anyway. I'm just saying how we write up the occupancy permit. Like, her people can surely figure out how to park 3 in a row and get in and out. I don't care about that. But in terms of our issued license, it's gotta say 1 parking spot. Correct?
Well, in terms of how many parking spots there are there, technically, yes.
Okay, that's all. I guess that's all I'm saying. Sorry to drag that out.
I want to question that again. Where does it state we have to put in 3 parking spots? Because she named 3.
Right.
She could name 1.
Right, she could.
Correct, that's what I'm saying.
If she named 1, she's already satified that.
That's what I'm
Mr.
saying.
Seabold's saying.
The risk to her, just kind of to drag that out, the worst case scenario is you get a nebby neighbor in there who's gonna be patrolling your parking, and that's the issue. You're gonna be approved for 1 spot, but I think the requirement is only that your people park off-street. So if they wanna stack them up, they can stack them up, but if they end up parking on the street, which they will, just be aware that will be problematic for your license. They have to park
Okay.
off-street. Okay?
Any other questions? Selena?
So you're only renting exclusively to nurses,
That's correct.
so any other applicants will be denied if they apply or happen to hear about the rental property?
Yes, that's correct. My verification process would be that they have to send me a UPMC contract from Hammett, a screenshot of it to verify that they do have dates set to work at Hammett.
So are we legally permitted to do that under housing?
I mean, in terms of the employment requirement, I don't think that runs afoul of it. I mean, it's not one of the standard protected classifications, race, creed, color, religion, age, gender, national origin, disability, veteran status, sexual orientation, gender identity. If she's discriminating on the basis of those things, or even getting into the Erie County Human Relations Ordinance, some of the other requirements with regard to, past criminal convictions, if people are being excluded on the basis of those things, then I think that that's an issue. But if she's saying, I want to see that you are employed by Hammett, so I'm renting to nurses, I don't think there's any career criteria in terms of how that works.
Any other questions?
Just a point of clarification on the rental application. You have down here that Autumn Buys is going to be your responsible agent, but you have your email address down there. Does she not have an email address?
That's correct. Anything that's in person and that she needs to be there 24/7 for, I would like for her to address. That's why her address and her phone number are there. But if it's via email, it should come directly to me, because anything that is addressed via email, I would like to deal with.
Well, I would suggest that you probably also provide an email address for her, because there are multiple ways of getting in touch with people. And I think that so that the city has multiple avenues to contact somebody, it would make sense to have her email address there as well. I don't think it would be a problem to make sure that you're both on the correspondence, but I think that we should have that contact information for her also.
Okay, I just
Okay.
made a note of that. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. And then also, I note that, again, to make sure that we're at least covering all these things, the backyard is fenced on 2 sides, and there's a planting on 1 side, correct?
That's correct.
Any other questions from the board? Anybody else to speak in favor of this? Or anyone to speak in favor of this? Last time, anybody else to speak in favor of this? Anybody object to it? Anybody who wants to object to this? Last call, any objections? Okay, ready for a vote? All right, we'll call for a vote.
Mr. Dawson?
Motion to approve.
Ms. Gungeon?
Denied.
Ms. King?
Denied.
Mr. Sebald?
I'm going to deny as well.
Mr. Johnson?
Approve.
Okay, that motion has not passed. I can reach out to you with the next steps on how to proceed, and you also get a decision letter that'll tell you exactly what to do.
Okay.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Is there any way that I can move forward with reasonings on any of those? I don't know if that's protocol at all.
I'd be happy to talk about mine. I'm doing it based on, we haven't fixed our ordinance yet, so it's the screening. And I know that's silly and stupid, but that's the way it's written, so that's my reasoning.
About the plant screening?
Yes. The way the ordinance is written, all 4 of your sides would have to be screened in with 6-foot plantings, because of the way the ordinance is written currently. So the fence around the lot on the 2 sides isn't enough, and then it would also have to extend to the front and then also across the front. It's something that we've been trying to get council to fix, but they're not. So that's that.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Ms. Gungeon?
Similar to Mr. Sebald, I understand that the Planning Commission has made that recommendation. I don't think that we as a board can vote in good faith on a recommendation in something that hasn't been codified. I do understand that you are an unfortunate consequence of that. I've felt that way since we started tabling these appeals, I think November, December of this year, that we understand that we're somewhat penalizing the people that are coming forward and trying to do the right thing when we know that there are short-term rentals that are operating currently without going through the licensure process. So I do apologize for you being that unfortunate consequence. By the same token, I do feel it's responsible as board members to vote on the ordinance as it is currently written.
Ms. King?
I'm also going to echo the sentiments of my colleagues on the board, but also our parking issue. I know that we really don't have the measures to enforce that as well, and I don't want to see us get into a situation where there's a safety issue with the parking right now. And so I apologize, unfortunately, that it's not being fixed right now. Hopefully, I don't know if she can come back and appeal it once the ordinance is corrected. Is there something in place that we can do
She could start a new
that?
appeal at that time, or she has the option to appeal this to higher court.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Art, if she asked us to table this for now, and we agreed to it, could she do that?
Well, I mean, it's your decision whether or not to table, but I mean, it's probably too late at this point in time because you've already voted.
I mean, we could rescind the vote, can't we? No, I mean, I'm just asking, rather than put this girl through another $300 and to go through all this again.
If somebody wanted to make a I don't know how you
Let
want to
me
do it.
ask this, can we have a motion? Like, the hearing's not the big deal, it's another $300. Can we make a motion to waive that? Do we have that ability?
Just so you know, we have to pay for advertising, and that's what all of the cost goes to. It's very, very expensive to advertise right now.
Yeah, but it's kind of our fault.
Well, and again, that's not something that you as a board have the ability to handle because that's the executive branch side of things. You're an independent body, you don't control the administrative side of this.
Okay.
So, I don't know how you undo the vote at this point in time to table, right? If somebody wanted to reconsider their vote and change it to an approval at this point in time, you could probably do that, but I don't know how you undo the vote and table it for now.
Is that possible through 2/3 vote?
I don't believe so.
Now we're getting technical.
Well, you are getting technical.
You are getting technical.
And I'm saying to you, if two-thirds voted to rescind, isn't that in the rules?
I believe that two-thirds could vote to, well, to rescind the motion.
Yes.
No? So if four of you,
Exactly right.
if four of you voted to rescind, so somebody would have to make the motion to rescind, somebody would have to second it, four of you would have to vote in favor of it, and then before you take the next vote, you could table it.
I'd like to make a motion to rescind the vote held on this particular property.
I'd second that.
Okay, there's a motion, there's a second. Discussion, if any.
Well, I think it's the right thing to do. I don't think we should punitively punish someone because we can't get our collective thing in order. So I would rather table, but quite frankly, you could probably continue to operate this thing without a license because there isn't any actual enforcement going on. And then when, I mean, it's the truth. And then when when city council straightens out the ordinance, we can untable it and issue a license. That's how
So
I
we're
see
gonna
it.
vote on next whether to rescind.
To rescind the
And
vote
then
on the
after that, we
motion.
can vote on tabling.
After that, somebody would make a motion to table, and it would be.
Okay, roll call on the
To
rescission.
rescind the vote that we just had, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Dawson?
In favor.
Ms. Gungeon?
In favor.
Ms. King?
In favor.
Mr. Sebald?
In favor.
Mr. John, oh, yes,
In-
Mr.
in fa-
Johnson, sorry.
In favor.
Yes, okay, so motion to rescind has passed.
So I'd like to make a motion to table.
Second,
And it's tabled.
tabled. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, guys. Could I ask who seconded that?
That was me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Roll call?
No, you don't need to,
No.
it's tabled.
Okay.
So, Dar, you have been tabled now. I will contact you when that will go back on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Okay. Did and undid. So, but yes, you will be contacted when I put this back on the agenda. You will have to appear at that time. And you can do
Okay.
Zoom, granted everything's working properly.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
the meeting.
I do have a question for the solicitor. I unfortunately have a hard stop at 2:15 today. Should I hear this testimony? Should I not? Because I'm assuming it's going to take longer than 10 minutes.
I mean, if you're not going to be able to vote, there's no need for you to hear the testimony.
Okay.
You're certainly welcome to. You
Okay.
just wouldn't be able to vote on it,
Okay,
obviously.
thank you. I apologize.
That won't affect quorum, so we can continue.
Very good, thank you. Okay, up next, we have, my paper back open, appeal number 13306 by Gary Iben, Esquire, on behalf of Dola Real Estate Company concerning a property located at East 42nd Street and Dexter Avenue. Parcel ID is 18-5244-300, located in an R3 high-density residential zoning district. The appellant is requesting approval of a group care facility. Per section 20413 of the ordinance, the group care facility is not a permitted use.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon to everyone. My name is Gary Iben, and I am the attorney for Perseus House Incorporated. I believe that Ms. Francis identified me as counsel for DOLA. That isn't really accurate. I'm counsel for Perseus House Incorporated. And the property we're dealing with, if we could put the map up, I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, this is the property we're dealing with. If you look at it, If Tuttle Avenue were to extend south any further, it would come across this property. Access to it would be over to the west of Dexter Avenue, and that's probably where the address would be. What you're seeing now is vacant land. There are some, I guess, construction equipment, things like that on it, but there's nothing built on it. It's vacant land. It is currently owned by Dola Real Estate Company, and the reason that we are here is that we have articles of agreement to purchase this property on behalf of Percy's House Incorporated. What I have with me is a copy of the articles of agreement, and I would like to mark that as Exhibit A, because I don't believe we have that on the appeal form. And it does have a proviso in here allowing us to proceed with a variance request and to have that concluded within 90 days, and we're currently well within the 90 days. And I don't know how you'd like me to submit this. I don't think you need a copy for everyone, but...
Just give it to the chair.
Okay, thank you.
Give it to Art.
Oh, you want me to take it? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Gary.
And just for the record, I would refer to Section 33B and the addendum to it, which are the sections which refer to the right of Perseus House as the buyer of the property and currently as the equitable owner to proceed with this appeal. As I said, it is in an R3 district, which is high-density residential, and the issue which arises has to do with the provisions of the Erie City Zoning Code dealing with group homes and group care facilities. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a little more detail in a few minutes. What I would like to do now, though, is just to explain to you what the development will involve. And I have, for that purpose, Dr. Nick Viglione, who is our CEO. I'm always giving him a different title. He's very versatile. But he's going to explain, I'll lead him through some questions here, what exactly it is we intend to do with this property. But first of all, can you just explain what does Perseus House Incorporated do?
Perseus House Incorporated, we provide congregate care for kids that are in need of mental health treatment. These are, we've been in existence since 1971, and we've been providing care during that time frame. Our organization is accredited. We have the golden standard of the Joint Commission accreditation. Also follow and adhere to regulatory bodies from the Department of Human Services and other entities. Right now, we are providing care to kids and families that choose to come to us. These kids and families volunteer our services. These are kids that are not court-ordered. They are not delinquent kids. These are kids that are truly in need of some mental health services. The number of kids in Erie County and across the state has increased drastically over the last 5 years, specifically after the pandemic, and our goal is to continue to provide care to these kids that are in need.
You mentioned that these aren't delinquent.
Correct.
This
is a non-court ordered, non-delinquent facility in care that we're talking about. Again, these, if the parents choose to leave, they have every right to do so. There's nothing binding them there.
Is the program that Perseus House operates a drug treatment program?
No, it is not.
Would what we intend to construct be a drug treatment or delinquent child program?
No.
Thank you. What's the average length of stay?
Kids are roughly 6 to 9 months. They come into care with us, and then they would return back to their families to continue with the intent to have a successful family relationship.
What is the age bracket of the children you treat?
12 to 18.
Where would they attend school?
Being in the City of Erie, the City of Erie School District would be responsible for their education. We have a collaborative learning center that is on 7th and Hess Street where the kids currently are.
Where do these children we're talking about currently reside?
Right now, we have facilities throughout the city of Erie currently that we've had in operation for years. We just prefer a more state-of-the-art facility than the current locations. We have a facility on 7th Street, a facility on 26th Street, 2 facilities on 6th Street.
So you're trying to consolidate?
To provide a better environment for the kids. It serves lots of needs from an organizational perspective to consolidate, yes.
Would it have an improvement upon treatment outcomes?
Yes, we want to build a state-of-the-art facility that provides the types of environment that our kids would thrive
You use the term campus-style setting?
in. Campus style, we're looking to provide everything that would support the kids in their needs, from recreation to group work, room and board, so to speak.
And what about staffing? How do you maintain staffing now, and how would you do that at the new facility?
Right now, we provide family wages, sustainable wages for about 120 staff. That includes salary, benefits, pension plan, and such. Any additional pieces to that, as you can see in the diagram, would bring an additional about 15 to 20 new employees per facility.
All right, let's talk about, you said new pieces. Now, by the way, these diagrams are in the agenda, and these are just color versions of them to make them a little more apparent. So, but there is one that says A100 on it, and the other half, what is being depicted by this gray that you see going through the middle of that?
That would be the roadway and the parking spaces for the employees and at times family visitors.
And what do we see?
That's a visual on the screen right
Yeah, we see it there. What is the building, if we go down a little further? No, I'm sorry, the other direction. Go. Stop right there. Thank you, that's okay. Where's the gymnasium going to be located?
The gymnasium would be on the right side of the screen.
Okay. Thank you, right there. Okay.
That would include a gymnasium, also include an aerobic area for kids, potentially mini theater, plus some office spaces for staff to operate the facility.
I see 5 other buildings which would be going along what I believe is the southern boundary of property, and then there's a 6th one up by the northern boundary near Warsaw Avenue. What are those 6 buildings?
Right now, there are 5 current existing facilities that we're looking to relocate. When the pandemic came, just due to this, quite frankly, more due to the staffing shortage, kids and referrals with mental health needs were not a referral issue. It was more of staffing, so we had to close one of our facilities temporarily because of that.
Okay. What would these buildings?
Those would be to support kids in the facilities.
Right. So they would replace the facilities you're just referring to?
That's correct.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
So we have the gymnasium.
Existing kids, if that's the question. Existing kids in our existing space.
Right, okay. So we have the building with the gymnasium and offices, and the other buildings are residential?
Correct.
Okay. Now, there are 3 other outlines of buildings. Would that be your intention to construct those immediately, or what would your intention be?
That would be green space for right now, but down the road, we wanted to ensure that if there was an opportunity to have a couple additional units, that the location that we move to would have that potential.
We're referring to these 3 here, here, and here?
That's correct.
Would any new jobs be created at any point in time because of this construction and this project?
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to a little bit earlier. If when the time would come, it would be about 15 to 20 new staff for each of those 3 existing white spaces that's on the electronic screens.
Is it important to Percy's House to stay in the city of Erie?
We prefer to stay in the city of Erie. We have approximately 85–90% of our staff reside in the city of Erie. We have a lot of staff that are, that really do not want to travel outside of the city. So for us, from a staffing resource, it made sense to stay in the city. Also, there's a lot of resources within the city that we would tap into, so yes.
You referred to the staffing issues. What about the residents themselves? Is there a reason you want to keep those in the city of Erie?
Number one would be the amount of services and opportunities that Erie provides that many of our kids have not experienced. So, it just makes sense. It's more vibrant. There's different aspects of even going to the Presque Isle or downtown. We provide a lot of support for local systems and way of volunteer and community service. It just makes sense.
For what I'll call the first stage, which would be the gymnasium and office building, as well as the other 6 residential buildings, what is the current construction estimate?
We're roughly looking about $12.5 to $14 million.
All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions for Dr. Biglione.
Just a couple for my edification. I'm not oriented northwest, east, south on this. For the parcel, as I'm looking at the map on the screen, not this map, the actual map, below the area that you're looking to develop, wow, that's really kind of disconcerting underneath. There we go. And actually, on this map, oh, you're going to flip it around for me? Thank you. Okay. So the parcel below the area that you're proposing to develop, what is that? Is that like that East Grandview
Right
Kmart
now.
Plaza?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then to the right are, I believe, elderly care facilities, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. With regard to the organization itself, so my understanding is that these units that you're proposing to develop, the people who are going to be resident there, they're not court-directed, they're not under any type of governmental supervision or anything like that, correct?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make that clear, because
Yeah.
a lot of folks, when they hear Perseus, you think that way, but it's really inaccurate. These are called residential treatment facilities.
So you don't have any government contract with regard to the folks that are going to be in these facilities?
I mean, we still have to follow regulatory guidelines from DHS and such, but
Right.
otherwise, no.
There's no funding stream for you coming through, right? This isn't like,
This is like medical expenses that you would pay a hospital, that sort of funding comes that way.
okay. As a question for discussion to zoning, then, is this a group care facility?
Yes.
Well, a group care facility is an establishment that provides room and board to persons who are residents by virtue of receiving supervised specialized services limited to health, social, rehabilitative, or housing services provided by a government agency, their licensed or certified agents, or other responsible nonprofit social services corporation.
Correct. And that's what we anticipated with Perseus House. As he stated, it is a medical facility. So they are under some medical care.
It's also a nonprofit social service agency.
Right.
Correct.
I'm just looking, and again, there's literally case law out there about what difference the Oxford comma makes, right? Or the presence of a comma. And as this is perhaps just, again, a drafting issue with the ordinance itself, but there's no comma in between their licensed or certified agents or other responsible nonprofit social services corporation. So I didn't know if there was an opinion from zoning as to whether there should be a comma there. And we're talking about people receiving services provided by a government agency, comma, their licensed certified agents, comma, or other responsible nonprofit social services
Yeah, I
corporation.
can see how you say that. Yeah, makes sense. And we've always taken anybody like them or in that same type of business as a group care facility, just precedents from the past.
Okay. I mean, it's an interesting point, because if that definition doesn't apply to them, then I don't know that there's a good definition that fits what they're trying to do. And of course, we have to provide within the zoning map for, a legal business like this.
Correct.
So-
And so that's what the office has always taken. We've looked at what type of facility, is it under court, is it not, is it medical, does it fit in there somewhere? And with Perseus House, we have found that to be true.
Okay. I'm actually arguing for you to have less restrictions.
Because we are not a court order, that's for sure.
Right.
Jake is making commas over here, so just,
Yeah,
when
I
we
mean,
address
just
things,
because,
try to make
again,
sure it's correct.
It's a different animal, right? If we've got group care facility defined, we've got group residence facility defined, we've got group home defined, and if the determining factor is whether or not the residents there are court ordered, right, then they don't fit under a group care facility, and you don't have a spot for them in the zoning ordinance.
Right.
So that's something to consider. There's also, this is an R3
Yes.
district, correct? So in R1, group homes are allowed. In R2, or special exception, group homes are also a special exception in R1A. Group homes are a special exception in R2. And then in R3, there's no provision for the group homes, but you do allow hospitals, you do allow nursing and convalescent homes.
I think R3 does allow group homes.
As a permitted use, it does allow group homes, that's correct. And of course, group homes wouldn't apply because that's not your population. But yeah, you're right, Gary, it is under permitted use. But under special exceptions, you do allow hospitals, nursing and convalescent homes, and rooming and boarding homes. Correct. Okay.
I think what you're touching upon here is the reason why we're here today, because we're talking about a distinction between group homes and group care facilities that is razor thin. And I think we could make an argument that we fit within the definition of a group home, but we're really not trying to do that. We're really asking this board to exercise its discretion to allow us to proceed with something which is, from a zoning or development perspective, no different whatsoever from anything else, for a lot of other uses to which this property could be put, such as, you said, group homes, personal care boarding homes, homes for adults, and so on. So that's why we're here today. And I think I've made the case I want to make. I think you make a good point about, what you're providing for in these different districts. The only other thing I'd say is that Mr. Welsh has touched upon various changes which are being proposed to the zoning ordinance today in other contexts. And I just wonder if he can maybe give us the status of discussions which have taken place with respect to the group home, group care facility issue, because this is an issue I understand which you're aware of and you want to address. So if you could comment.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, Planning Commission has been discussing a lot of group housing scenarios as written into the zoning ordinance, and looking at permitted uses in all of the residential districts in general as well. One of the items that has been discussed at the Planning Commission is, in fact, the distinction between a group home and a group care facility. Group home itself, the only reference to group home is under the definition of family. But group home itself is not specifically defined, which we've recommended, and the Planning Commission has endorsed a recommendation to further define group home. And in doing so, that's going to distinguish between a group home being a residential dwelling, single detached residential dwelling, similar to a single-family home, which is what's alluded to in the current definition of family, and which distinguishes it from a group care facility, which is, I don't want to use the word commercial, but perhaps campus-like development where services are being provided in addition to just the residence itself on site. The comment by the solicitor regarding the comma to help further distinguish that is a separate category of permitted operator of a group home or group care facility. That is noted, and that will be added to our recommendation. But this is a current recommendation that the Planning Commission has already endorsed, is to distinguish group home from group care facility. And further, looking at the R3 district itself, we've looked at all the residential districts in the city and looked at the permitted and special exception uses within the city, and all the uses for that matter. Within the R3 district, there's been a recommendation made and endorsed by the Planning Commission to add group care facility to the R3 district as a permitted use. It is obviously not listed as a permitted use at this point in time, hence the variance application. But the recommendation on the table that will be formally adopted and sent to council is to add group care facility as a permitted use in R3. You mentioned a couple of other uses that are similar as far as group housing type arrangements, things like dormitories or rooming houses. We've made some additional recommendations for the R3 district to allow a couple of other group housing type arrangements, to move them from special exceptions to permitted uses. Just the other comment I'll make is that a lot of the reasoning behind some of these proposed changes is that there are many conditions that are currently listed in the zoning ordinance, and all of these facilities need to operate under those conditions. And the feeling of the Planning Commission was that for some of these types of uses, as long as these conditions are being met, and it's not any kind of a controversial type use, that the thought was they wanted to make a lot of these uses to be able to be approved administerially without going through zoning hearing board hearings and additional costs and time to get these uses approved. So that was some of the thought process behind some of these recommendations.
Thank you. We have nothing further to present.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I had several, I just want to be clarified. You spoke of consolidation. You spoke of consolidation. Are you saying that you're going to move the existing homes that you have to this?
That's correct.
And which ones are you speaking of?
There's a specific, let me answer this?
Go ahead.
Specific address, I'm going to have to forgive me on that, but there's a home located on the 700 block of West 7th Street.
How many people?
That is 10.
Okay.
There's 10 clients. There's a house on 26th Street that has 6 clients in. And there's 2 facilities on 6th Street that have 7 and 12. And then there's one location that we would be moving outside of the city limits into Erie, and that has 10 as well.
Where's that at?
That is in McCain.
And is it East 6th Street or West 6th Street?
East 6th Street. It's the Florence Crittenden, the old Florence Crittenden Center on 6th. I believe it's 636 maybe.
Yeah.
East 6th.
And then, 26th Street, is that by, near Sassafras?
It is correct, that's correct. It's directly across from the bank.
Yeah, Northwest,
On
yeah.
Northwest Bank right there, and then the 7th Street,
Around Liberty?
right around Cherry. yes.
Yeah. Any other questions from the board?
Do you believe there's anything in the design of what you're doing that's going to change the essential character of the residential neighborhood that you're adjacent to?
I do not. I think what we're planning on doing aesthetically is going to look extremely nice. It'll be well kept. I think it'll add, driving by there right now, I think it's going to look very nice. And we're a community-friendly neighborhood, no, I don't think so.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the
Yes, I
board?
further had additional. You mentioned there was no drug treatment provided. If the children need that, you're not going to provide it?
I thought the question, do you want me to take this one?
Go ahead, yes.
I thought the question was more about kids that are coming to treatment because they have drug and or alcohol issues. That's not the type of place this is. Are there kids that might be on medications? Absolutely, they may be on medications. But I was referring to it as it's not a drug and alcohol treatment.
That's exactly what I'm asking.
Okay.
Those are generally licensed,
Yeah, do you
and so you're not going to have a licensed treatment facility under drug and alcohol.
No, it is not a drug and alcohol treatment facility. It would be under the mental health law, and there would be mental health medicines, but no, it's not for folks that are currently on drug or alcohol related issues. Does that make sense the way I'm saying that to you?
I'm listening.
Any other questions?
This one. Do you anticipate allowing the gym for public use or just exclusive to Perseus House?
I haven't really thought about that. Probably more exclusive to Percy's house. I haven't really thought outside of that, quite frankly.
Because I'm just thinking about additional traffic in the neighborhood, so that was
Yeah,
just
we
the
don't
question.
really,
Okay, all right.
that's not really the
Thank you.
intention.
Thanks.
Anything else from the board?
Yeah, so in terms of like the neighborhoods you're in, what kind of issues do you experience with neighbors, with your clientele and their interactions on the negative side of things? And then do the same thing for positive side of things.
We really don't have negative issues with our neighbors. Quite frankly, it's more on the other side of the coin. Across from our facility on 7th Street is a fraternity house, so we've had issues with that. There's a dilapidated house that sits next to our house on 26th Street, and a tree fell in our driveway and hit some of our cars. We had a break-in on 26th Street that police were called because they had to detain the burglar in our home with the kids were there, so we had to have security measures for that. We really don't have negative issues. Like I said, we keep our facilities clean and well-kept. I really
Okay.
don't have a better answer than that on that side of the coin.
So how would it look from like the neighborhood to the north there? Are there fences? Do the kids have free reign of the whole property? How does a normal day look like?
A normal day looks like similar to our programming models a typical well-functioning family lifestyle. So they would have time to go out and recreate. They would come in for dinner. The facility, we would certainly want it to be easy on the eyes for our neighbors, that's for sure. So, I could see putting fencing or some trees. It's a bare spot right now. But as far as the kids in their free reign, so to speak, they're always supervised with the staff. So when I think of free reign, I mean they could go outside and recreate, but there would be staff with them and such.
I guess from a neighbor perspective, you wouldn't want it to appear to be prison-like. You wouldn't want it to appear, at best, you would want it to be like a residential school, correct?
So that's why I was really highlighting that this is not a delinquent facility. And I think our organization has that local mindset, and that's really not an accurate mindset. Our kids look no different than kids that you would see anywhere in theory. So, you know.
Okay. I understand that. Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Anybody else in the audience here to speak in favor of? Anybody in the audience to speak in favor of? Anyone to speak in favor of? Anyone here to object to variance? You're sworn in, do you want to speak?
Yes, I am.
You come on up.
Come on.
Give us your name and address, please.
And you said you were not sworn, sir?
I'd like to be sworn in.
Okay, so the court reporter.
Sure, sir, can you raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My name's Gordon McMichael. I live at 4139 Burton Ave. It's around the corner from the open lot. You know, I did have some questions. I didn't know if you were allowed to ask questions as well. For Perseus, when they apply to the program, is it all via insurance? Insurance funded, health insurance?
It's through.
Just make sure you're speaking make sure you're speaking into the microphone so our court reporter can hear, please. Thank you.
The funding would come through private insurance or through a health choices type of insurance, correct?
And then I was interested, success rate versus failure.
Yeah, we have about an 85% success rate in our facilities. Kids typically will transition back to their home unless there was an issue at the home, for whatever reason that might be.
And then security, are they free to, like, free time during the day? Would they be, you know, going to the country fair around the corner, you know, up and down the streets?
No, they, like I was saying earlier, it's a supervised program.
Sure.
So they would be with staff 24/7.
And then what is the ratio of the staff to the residents?
Regulations are 1 to 8, but we go 1 to 6.
Will the project, if it's approved, be bid publicly for construction?
We would go through a few, yes. We would
Yes,
go through- we're still-
but not prevailing wage, probably because it's not state funded?
That's a legal question. I don't know that it really relates to the issue before you, but I would just add that we generally do receive substantial amount of state funding, and that does call for prevailing wage.
Okay. And the only reason I think it matters is, I mean, you've quoted some of the other thing about employees impacting economically, so, you know, that's my field, and we would be interested to know. So you said it's a treatment facility, and the way I understood with some of the matters in front of the city is to approve these type of things as healthcare. Perseus House, do they also do any other kind of facilities, like parolees, including sex offenders at all?
Go ahead, Nancy.
We have various programs that are different than this. I stressed a different part, but we provide alternative education programs for kids that are struggling in the schools that they're in. We provide mental health counseling in just different schools that contract our service to deal with kids in the student assistance programs that all public middle and high schools have to have. We provide on our 1510 State Street location, we do provide a shelter program that is more court-ordered through probation and OCY. But that's, again, I want to stress that's not what we're talking about right now.
And how is that going to be written into this approval? Like, is there a guarantee that what you say is going to be built?
I've not had that discussion.
I'm not sure when we cross the boundary here between a zoning issue and issues to be addressed whenever we have subdivision approval and submission of the actual plans. But we will say that it is our intention to meet the definition of group care facility, which does not include these kind of activities. So this is just not an issue that's going to arise in this context. It's not going to be a criminal or a sex offender treatment facility at all.
When people apply for their children in the age bracket that you described, are they drug screened at all?
We go through a screening with them, that would be prior to them coming and when they come to us.
Okay. And then, so would you allow people that would, say, fail a drug test to still enter the facility?
One of our exclusion criteria is if you're addicted or abusing drugs or alcohol.
So they would be excluded. Traffic study in the area at 42nd and Dexter, there's some drainage issues. I think there's some other people here that I know about from the neighborhood. Is there going to be any improvement to the city roads, signage, lighting to accommodate the traffic? There looks to be like, how many spots, I guess?
I'm going to anticipate what Mr. Ivan's going to say, and you're really getting into something that is going to be before the City Planning Commission, and it's not appropriate for zoning.
I understand. Character of the neighborhood, it's just, we were concerned about that at the outset. Any police calls at your other locations in the last year where the police have been called to help out or assist?
Is that question directed to police calls for incidents initiated by residents? Or is it for other reasons?
For the facility.
Because he talked about there being a burglary at their facility, the police would be called, but I'm assuming you're asking about police calls related to their residents.
You assume correctly.
All right.
Over the last year, I don't believe we've had an issue that caused the police to show up. We have had a police officer bring a client in because they didn't have the parental guardian to transport, and there was an issue with that.
Right.
We would call the police if need be, make no mistake.
Sure.
But that doesn't.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate the questions.
Yeah.
It was difficult to access the information online, so a lot of us in the neighborhood were concerned. There's about 4 other residents here. I did have a petition signed by residents in the area, 6-block area, Tuttle, Dexter, Burton, street that I live on, Brandis, 40th, 41st, 42nd. There, including my name, there's 57 residents that, the way that it's written is Erie residents against the Dexter Ave Perseus development.
Is this opposing the variance?
Against,
Okay.
yes.
You can bring that up.
All right.
Yeah.
Amy, do you want to take this for the record, too?
That's all that I had.
Let me see them.
Thank you.
You can see either of them, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could you stay up for a second? Were you given the opportunity by Perseus House to address any of your issues
Just now.
prior to this meeting?
Yeah, the sign was posted last week at the field. It was about that size on a wooden post, planted only 3 inches in the ground, fell over in the first storm. I tried to go online to access the information. It was difficult. I reached out to somebody at the city to try to access it. I picked up the sign, re-stapled it so other people could see it, twice after it had knocked down in the storm. So other than hearing right now what it is, it's just a volume. And me personally, I can't speak for the other residents. Everybody had their own opinion on why they were against it. Traffic in the area is high. There's been,
Thank
quite
you.
a- Yes, is that enough?
No.
Notification is also sent to all the neighbors that are touching around. The office does do that as a courtesy.
How far is that radius?
We touch every parcel that touches it, will get a notice.
So if you bring the map up, it's just a handful that actually are.
It was about
on the-
12.
On the boundary, yep.
Anything else, Ed?
No.
Selena? Tom, you got anything?
Do you feel that they allayed any of your concerns at all with what they said today?
Sorry. Oh, and he said.
Only in what I heard earlier about bypassing any variances for healthcare related, that's going to be written in. If I had a concern, that would be my main concern. But the neighborhood's busy enough as far as I'm concerned. And so I really didn't have any issues with the things that they talked about. Just the volume and the area and the impact.
Anybody else to speak in opposition to this? Come forward. You. Your name and address, please.
My name is Sharon Webb, 4145 Tuttle Avenue.
All right.
And Sharon, would you be sworn?
Sorry. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear.
As far as repetitious goes, if he's already mentioned it, you don't have to. If you have something new to add.
No, I own the big parcel that is directly behind. I've been there since 1998, before the woods was removed from the area. It will change the flavor of the area. I applaud Perseus House in what they do, and I applaud Gary. I worked with him at McDonald Illig. But it's going to change. Right now, my big yard, looks out directly onto it. And there are some trees there. There is significant drainage issues, which I know we can't discuss here. But I did, contacted the city, and an engineer came and looked, and they directed me to the owner of the property, which I did. And myself and a couple other neighbors reached out, and he was dismissive to our flooding issue. So that's a concern. But I just want to speak for the neighbors that when I purchased the home, it was advertised as country in the city, and it truly was. But now it's being encroached on, and the traffic will definitely make a difference.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I just want to make sure for the record, ma'am.
Oh, yes.
So when you said the property owner was dismissive, you're not talking about Perseus House, you're talking about the actual owner of the property?
Exactly.
Okay.
Not Perseus House. I think they do a tremendous thing. I'm not convinced this is the perfect location for what they need.
Has that property been vacant the entire time that you've been a resident there?
It has, since 1998. It was woods behind the plaza. And then it was over 10 years ago that was mowed down, and nothing was ever developed. It does get mowed once a year for the new vegetation trying to grow up. But the ditch that was initially put in has filled in, and it's causing a problem.
Gotcha.
With flooding for me and 5 other neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else to speak in opposition of?
My name is Joseph Casey. I live on 4228 Dexter Avenue.
You need to get sworn in.
Thank you. I see your hand up. Do you solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So I live pretty much directly across the street from the plot of land. It's directly across the street and one house over. You can actually see it on the Google Maps, the gray house. So if you spin a little bit more. That right next to that blue house right there, that gray house, that's where I live. I'm concerned about the development that could be here because, quite honestly, I just bought the house 2 years ago. It was a fairly quiet neighborhood. I have issues with neighbors on the other side because there's a business up that way. That building there is multiple businesses, and we deal with a heavy traffic flow that comes through around the corner, and I have a lot of people that turn around in my driveway. I worry about that because there's a lot of road wear and tear and a lot of wear and tear on my driveway from just excessive traffic coming through the area.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Was that building there before you bought your house?
That building was, yes.
Okay.
But I'm concerned with additional traffic from people coming and going through the area. I'm also concerned with just what's going to happen, what would happen with property value. I'm concerned because I have nieces and nephews, have them over at the house, and it just concerns me trying to raise kids in the area, having kids around the potential whatever's going on. I just don't think it's, I don't dislike what they're trying to do, but I don't think it's the right area for it. That's all I have to add to it.
Any questions from the board?
And you also signed the petition?
Yes, I signed the petition.
Okay,
Honestly, I only figured out about this because the man with the petition came to my house on Saturday. That was the first time that I learned about this, and exactly like he said, there was a single stick on the property with about a printer-sized piece of paper. That was the only information about it, and the only information on it was group care facility. There was zero information who to contact, zero information what was going on with the place, who the potential buyer was. There was nothing.
So you didn't receive the...
I never
So
received
he would
that.
not have received the piece of mail, Amy?
He's not on a touching
Attached,
piece.
okay.
So we use a radius and some GIS to grab that list so that we get all the neighbors. I do have a picture of the posting. If you do need to see that, I do take a picture of that every time.
No,
I feel like we were all kind of caught off guard with this. The first I learned about it was a man knocking on my door asking to sign a petition about it. And I actually left work early today to be in here to speak about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else to speak in opposition of? Okay, all right. Board have any further questions?
I do have one. Is there anyone here from Dola Real Estate? Or no, are you, so you said you did not represent them, but is there?
No, Mr. Amendola is here. I
Okay.
really don't know his title, or he's the president, or, okay. And I don't know, I'm not gonna speak for him, okay? I represent Percy's house, so.
Okay.
But I don't believe he's opposed in any way.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
I'd like a moment to discuss this.
You want to discuss this?
Yes. Caucus.
Yep, all right, we can do that. We'll be back. We're going to call the meeting back to order.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we table appeal number...
Continue.
Appeal number 13306 until our next regular meeting.
Second?
Just by way of comment, the purpose of the continuance here is because of some of the questions that were, or some of the comments that were raised with regard to the neighbors having questions and the limited notice that went out. The board felt that it was appropriate to make give an opportunity for Perseus House and the neighbors to discuss some of the questions and concerns that might be out there to see if they might be resolved. I want to make it clear this is not a reflection on the zoning office. They gave notice in the standard format. It's not a question or a comment on Perseus House. I think that they are more than willing to make those accommodations and to have those conversations. This is an opportunity, I think, for all interested parties to try to see if there is some way to resolve some of the concerns in a way that if the board ultimately approves the application, it'll be able to move forward in as amicable a fashion as possible.
Two questions. Number one, what's the date of the next hearing? Because I've got a trip planned in July.
Okay? It's going to be the second, or it's the second Tuesday of the month.
Always the second Tuesday of the month unless we fall on a holiday, which I don't think we do. I believe it's the 9th, Gary. Let me give you a for sure on that. July 9th will be the next hearing.
Okay.
That's fine. Secondly, I'm unclear as to what we're expected to do in terms of opening up dialogue. Do we have a meeting with residents, or do you want them to simply have a contact with us that they can talk with us?
Yeah,
I'd like a little more flesh on those bones.
Sure. Let's ask the neighbors who are here. Is there one person, I mean, sir, you actually were the one that took the petition around, correct?
Yes.
Why don't you come on up? So the question is, we're going to give an opportunity here for the neighbors to talk to Perseus House, okay, about the development and the plans for the development. Are you going to be the contact point for the neighbors?
I can be.
Okay. So if you would, again, please give your name and address.
Sure. Gordon, Gordon, McMichael, McMichael,
And
41.
Go ahead.
39, Burton Ave.
And what's the best way for somebody from Perseus House to contact you?
My cell, 814-860-1476.
Okay. For any of the other neighbors who are here, do you agree that Mr. McMichael would be the appropriate person to act as kind of a spokesperson for you?
Yes.
Okay. And then, Mr. McMichael, I'm sure that Attorney Ivan has a business card that he can give you.
We can trade.
And then you can contact. Gary, would it be more appropriate for him to contact you or to contact Perseus House directly?
Well, I'm still the slightest bit uncertain as to the full extent to which we're doing anything here. I'm thinking myself that I would get in touch with Mr.
McMichael.
And that I will identify for him a representative of Perseus House that he can talk to and really even maybe have a meeting with others that he can choose who to invite.
Yep.
I don't want to take that role, if you will.
And that's fine.
Okay,
So maybe just a suggestion, have Perseus House host a meeting that you all would coordinate and make it public notice so that people can attend from the neighborhood that have concerns. I'm not sure how that fits in, if they were going to take minutes.
Well, I think there's no requirement that minutes be taken. From listening to what I heard people say here, okay, my understanding is that there are concerns with regard to the visual aspects of the development, drainage from the development, which quite frankly I suspect would be improved by the development, but that's just my observation, and traffic, right? Those are the three concerns?
I would add fourth.
Okay.
My main question was, were there any other uses that were going to be allowed? And they didn't say yes and they didn't say no.
Well, so, and part of that is going to be addressed by the zoning variance if it's granted here, right? Because they've put on the record here what this facility is going to be used for. So this isn't going to be a pre-release center, right? This isn't going to be a drug and alcohol treatment center. They've been very, very clear on the record about that. But I'm sure that they can probably give you some additional assurances in that regard, okay? So once a variance is approved, assuming that the variance is approved, it's not carte blanche for them to do whatever they want with the property. And they know that. Certainly, Attorney Ivan would have advised them of that also. So they've come in, they've made a particular application, and they've told us what exactly it is that they want to do. And going far astray from that is going to cause some enforcement issues for them if that were to happen, okay? So I think that if those are the, and we'll include that certainly, but that's the fourth category of concerns.
Yeah, and my own, again, where in addition to the traffic, the roads and the lighting, which I know you said that was down the road. My only concern, I'm here on my own time. For my employer, let me flex my schedule, so I work. I went on my own time Saturday and Sunday, and a little bit yesterday after work. So I didn't take phone numbers. There's really no way for me to coordinate. That's why I thought they could make it public. It's a pretty big development. Something similar was proposed a number of years ago that would have affected the neighborhood in the same manner. So, you know, I think that they're a great organization. I just think that the neighborhood just needs to know more. There is the park close by, you know, Burton Park. It is, you know, a lot of families in the neighborhood. One has spoke. So, you know, people have concerns, and you know, it would be great if they could have that, because a lot of people just didn't know, you know, what was going on.
So what do you think the best way to notify people would be?
I think if they made an advertisement somehow, you know, and I'm not a media person, but maybe somebody has a suggestion. Go ahead.
We advertise in the newspaper twice. Couple weeks prior to, after getting application, and then a week before the property gets staked. I don't know how many people read the newspaper and the public notices at this point. Judging from the people that aren't here, I don't know how well that would be effective for you.
Yeah.
But that's what we've already done, because it's mandated that we do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, and I only, just so you know what my survey was, Saturday, 3 hours, 10 a.m. to 1, about the same time frame on Sunday. Cars that were in the driveway, preferably doors that were open. I didn't knock on every door. You know, so what you have here is, like on the list, were people that were actually there. The majority, I will tell you that I probably talked to 65 people, and only a handful weren't interested, and some of them had conflicts because they worked for the city.
Right, so with regard to, there's no advertising requirement here, right? We're not going to direct Perseus House to take an ad out in the Erie paper or to send out postcards or anything like that. There, you've got the petition, right? You've got the people that signed the petition. Those are obviously people who are interested, right? And again, you know, I don't encourage you to try to make this like, you know, a huge event. But if there are people that are interested that want to come and hear what they have to say on the issues that you've identified here today, I mean, I think that something like that, if it can be coordinated, that would be great. And again, the fact that we're continuing the hearing is not an indication that the variance won't be granted or will be granted. Even based on the information that we have today, we could have taken the vote. But it just seemed that with the number of people that were here to raise concerns about it, it was a better idea for everybody to see if there was a way to meet and at least discuss some of those issues before coming back before the zoning hearing board. Okay?
Makes sense.
Thank you. It's up to you two to get together and work out
Thank you.
a meeting plan.
Go ahead, Gary.
To make sure I'm heard, I want to step up.
Yeah.
Two things. Number one, Mr. McMichael apparently has a better understanding than we do of who all needs to be contacted. I would ask, if we're going to have a meeting, that he provide me with a list, and we'll have some kind of mailing to them that this is a list prepared. Put some reasonable limits on it, but give us a list so that we can identify who we need to contact.
The petition is now a matter of public record.
Correct. Okay, well, we'll base it on the petition then. Where the people on the petition are, if we can make it out, are the universe, if you will, to whom we'll send some kind of notice. And we'll schedule a meeting at some point in time. So that takes care of that one point. Second one, I noticed from Mr. McMichael's card that he's a building contractor. I want to be very clear. We're not getting into a description of what the whole building is going to consist of, all the details of it, and those other things. I even think some of the issues you identified are maybe a little beyond zoning, but we're willing to touch base with that. That's reasonable, that's limited. But we're not going to open the door to discussions of all kinds of issues that a building contractor might want to raise and might be familiar with. So I just want to make sure we're clear about that today,
Right.
not sometime in the future. Thank you.
And I think that's fair.
I do have one rebuttal. I have another card in my pocket. I'm on the Veterans Advisory Board for the Mellon Veterans Campus that started in Northeast. Also has my cell phone number on it. I came from work. I actually am in the safety side of things. I'm not a builder myself, although I do work for a construction company. But I'm okay with the sample size, and it is legible. I ask people to print. And I can, once the meeting time is set, wherever they decide to have it, I can let people know, on my own that can expand it. There are people that had concerns, so, I just wanted to say that.
Okay. And we're okay, we're okay with things being limited to the 4 subjects that we've discussed here today. Right? It's not going to open up the door.
I saw that you tabled the last one based on parking spaces, and I wish I would have set angled parking spaces with lines and an agreement to do some future bushes. I mean, and I thought you should have let the lady have what she wanted. That's
Okay,
just
we've heard enough today. You two get together and work it
So, I mean,
out.
it isn't, yeah.
We're not negotiators.
Yeah, no. I just was saying it seemed like a pretty simple fix.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Amy,
So-
do you mind sharing can you give them a copy of the petition, please?
I'm sure Mr. McMichael has a copy of the petition since he provided it to us.
Oh.
But if you could give Mr. Ivan a copy of the petition before he goes, that'd be
Yes.
fantastic.
I don't need it before I leave. You need
I can
Email it?
email it to
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
I also have an
And-
appointment at 4, just so
Okay.
you
All right,
know, but
moving
I
right
can-
All right,
along.
we're going to go.
So,
Moving right along.
so Mr. Johnson, you want to take a vote on that motion to continue?
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, go ahead. We'll somebody want to make that motion?
It's already been made.
Okay.
We just need to call for the
We just
vote.
need a vote. Roll call.
I apologize. Mr. Dawson,
In favor.
Ms. King,
Yes.
Mr. Siebold,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is passed to table and continue to the next meeting. Ready to move on? Okay. Appeal number 13307 by Thomas Paskevich, which is the proposed buyer on behalf of PBN Incorporated, DBA CTI-Erie, which is the ownership on the legal record. This is concerning a property located at 1111 Raspberry Street, 163051-126 as the parcel ID, that's located in an R2 medium-density zoning district. The appellant is requesting approval for a personal self-storage facility per section 204.12 of the ordinance. The personal self-storage facility is not a permitted use. Mr. Paskevich, if you could state your name and get sworn in.
Thank you, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My name is Tom Paskevich. I live in the city of Erie, and I'm here today to try to get an approval for a variance at 11 Raspberry Street, 1111 Raspberry Street, 4 ones. I don't know, did we get a blueprints available for everybody to see?
Yes, they should all have a copy of those.
Okay.
I will give you his written. That came in after your exhibits were distributed by deadline, so I'm gonna pass it along for you.
I'm looking to build a warehouse at this location in accordance to the specs of the zoning. I talked to Jake about the parameters and the setbacks. The blueprints are in accordance to what we discussed. And I'd like to say that I'd like to be able to build a warehouse there. And I believe there is definitely hardship on that property. First of all, the property is very narrow, and I don't believe it's suitable for a house to be built there. It's been vacant for almost 2 decades, and if I get the approval to build a warehouse there, I would make it so it would be in accordance to the neighborhood. There is a garage already right next to the property that I would like to purchase, and I think it would improve the neighborhood. The neighborhood does have some commercial buildings near it, and on Raspberry's east side, I believe there is no parking at all when you come from 12th Street. So being there a few times looking at the property, I noticed that most of the properties around there are like rental properties, and there is an issue with parking around the area. And with this building, I'm proposing to build this warehouse. I think that could alleviate possibly some of the parking issues, because I'm building a 24 by 30 warehouse, which could have probably adequate parking for at least 2 more vehicles. And I would not be too concerned about letting maybe even some of the neighbors parking there when I'm not there, just because I want to use it for my personal storage. And, you know, I think if you're friendly with the neighbors and they're kind of looking out for me and I'm looking out for them, I think it could be a good thing for everybody. I think it would help the city out. It's been vacant for I don't know how many years, but at least 2 decades. You know, after the LERTA has expired, it'd be a good tax base to bring in some income for the city. And I hope you take into consideration what I said. I think it would be an asset for the neighborhood. And if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them for you.
It's a vacant piece of ground, correct?
Yes.
Where does the beer distributorship come in? Was there a beer distributorship on the property at one time?
No.
Huh?
What was the other one? Chestnut.
You might be looking at the yeah.
Oh, okay.
Chestnut.
Where is your residence?
416 Stafford Avenue.
So how far from your residence is this?
I would say between 2 1/4 and 2 miles, maybe. When I was looking around the city to look for a place to build a storage facility warehouse, I was taking into consideration, you know, the distance from my house. I currently have a storage facility that I'm renting by the Sunflower Club. But there's a lot of problems with people parking in front of my building, and a lot of times I can't access it, and I need additional space. So that was really the closest property around my area that I could find that I thought would be suitable to put something like that in there where it wouldn't really change the character of the land. And so the 2 mile radius was about it. Everything else was like way farther away. And I wouldn't be interested in traveling too far. There was a saying one time when I went to the Y that if you're more than 3 miles away from your workout facility, you never go. So I don't want to make it too far.
Any questions from the board?
So what are you gonna use it for? What are you gonna store there?
I have a lot of stuff that I need to keep in storage. I'm a contractor. I have like cement mixers. I have another vehicle, equipment for my business, ladders and things like that I would like to store in there. And of course, I'm not going to be living there. There's not going to be a house on the property. So everything that I put in the building will stay in the building, and there will be nothing outside. I don't plan on putting a fence or anything around there, but I will make it nice and make it so the neighbors won't think it's an eyesore or anything like that.
On your application, it says you're the prospective buyer, so is the sale contingent upon you getting the variance?
Yes, it is. The sale is contingent on me getting a variance to build the garage, otherwise will not be purchased by me.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Anybody else to speak in approval of this variance?
I was just going to ask what the dimensions of the property are, and
30 by 99.
I was gonna say 40, and I knew that
So
was right.
I talked to Jake about the setbacks, and we have to go 3 feet on north and south, and 20 feet from the road. So the building is approximately 720 square feet, 24 times 30. So that gives us a 60-foot, roughly a 59-foot setback in the back. So it's pretty close to the center of the property.
Anybody else to speak in favor of this variance? Anybody else to speak in favor of the variance? Anybody to speak in opposition of the variance? Anybody to speak in opposition of the variance? Anybody to speak in opposition of the variance? I'll call for a vote.
Okay. Motion, or vote to approve, correct?
Approve.
Okay. Mr. Dawson? Yes, I'm sorry.
Yes.
We're just jumping ahead of you. Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Siebel? Okay. And Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Motion is carried. And I will be happy to get you started on your application so you could take advantage of Florida. We could talk after the meeting.
Thank you very much. Appreciate what you guys do. You put in a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.